Ms. Rochelle Keyhan, Director of Disruption Strategies from Polaris. Ms. Keyhan, thank you for coming today. I know you didn't just come next door, that's for sure, I don't believe.
Came from
a little ways away, yes, but thank you. Because obviously, we know the seriousness with which you take this issue, and we appreciate that, and we share in that seriousness. So, please. Thank you.
Is it
perfect.
Better now? Okay,
yes.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. So my name is Rochelle Keyhan, and as you mentioned, I'm the Director of Disruption Strategies at Polaris. Polaris is the national anti-trafficking organization in the United States and home of the National Human Trafficking Hotline. My department, called Disruption Strategies, is meant to do exactly that: devise and identify best practices and strategies for disrupting human trafficking. In 2017, Polaris analyzed over 32,000 cases of human trafficking that came through our National Human Trafficking Hotline and developed a classification system that reveals what human trafficking in the United States truly is. 25 distinct business models, and illicit massage businesses are one of those 25 types. We created the term illicit massage businesses to describe a very specific type of exploitative, organized commercial front trafficking venue. And it's a type that we saw implicated over and over and over again in cases reported to the Human Trafficking Hotline. The illicit massage business cases were reported in the second highest volume, only behind escort services. And what is not included in this term is anything that is a legal massage business. Additionally, it does not include consensual sex work that incorporates massage as well. So it's a very specific type that is organized, criminal, and exploitative. While the conversation around human trafficking in illicit massage businesses often focuses on the harm to the victims of that crime, we can't ignore the fact that the existence of these illegitimate venues also harms therapeutic, legitimate massage therapists. When illicit massage businesses fraudulently claim to be part of the massage industry, they put therapeutic massage therapists at risk by sexualizing this non-sexual legitimate health profession. This sexualization of massage inspires buyers to harass and assault therapists in those therapeutic settings, from high-profile buyers we've seen in the press like Harvey Weinstein, Steve Wynn, and Stan Lee, to numerous everyday buyers with similarly warped expectations. And it invites human trafficking into our neighborhoods with abundance. The methodology we used to make this analysis was released in a report this year, January 2018. And it's a comprehensive report on illicit massage businesses across the United States. But I'm going to talk a little bit about that United States coverage because California has 35% of the illicit massage businesses we identified and connections to the illicit massage networks in every state in the country. So I think that national overview is relevant. To build this report, we undertook a rigorous 18-month data collection effort. We looked at 185 criminal case dockets, over 375 additional and unique prosecuted illicit massage businesses. We listened to knowledge from over 1,300 survivor experiences gathered in focus groups. We researched how victims are recruited, studying patterns across over 17,000 advertisements in California and New York, as well as social media recruitment via WeChat and KakaoTalk, which are apps. We consulted with the CAMTC, FSMTB, AMTA. We talked a lot with Bev about the impacts on a legitimate profession as well. We collected 21 months worth of U.S. media coverage of investigations and arrests in illicit massage businesses across the country. And to understand the legal landscape across the country, which will be the bulk of what I focus on today, we looked at the civil code for over 30,000 United States jurisdictions, including state, city, and county laws. To round out all of this information, our analysts added over 60,000 pieces of additional open source data from buyer review boards, social media, business records, and other open source data sets to help us connect all of those data points to one another. It was a pretty massive project. And when we combined and cross-referenced all of that data with our internal hotline data, we found that there are more than 9,000 illicit massage businesses operating on any given day in America in every single state. California is ranked number 1 in the nation for concentration of IMBs. Over 35% of the nation's 9,000 operate in California, where there are over 3,325 illicit massage businesses. For a sense of scale, consider that the state of California has only 320 In-N-Out burgers and only 2,850 Starbucks storefronts. So there's more illicit massage businesses than Starbucks and 10 times as many illicit massage businesses as In-N-Outs. And I'm from Orange County, California, which has 398 illicit massage businesses. It's the county with the third highest concentration in the entire United States, behind only New York and Los Angeles. Many cities in Orange County are amongst the cities with the highest concentration of illicit massage businesses in the entire country. They're in the top 0.5% for highest volume of illicit massage businesses. And Orange County is not alone. I don't want to single them out. Almost every major county in California is similarly sharing that top 0.5% spot. The Bay Area, Los Angeles, San Diego. Every major California county is overrun with these illicit venues. We walk past them every day, but don't pay them any notice. They are able to hide in plain sight in strip malls and on city streets, in part because most people think what's going on in these establishments is a victimless crime. But according to our research, including those over 1,400 survivor stories I mentioned earlier, that's not the case. Through direct service provision, survivor focus groups, and work with service providers and law enforcement, Polaris has put together a detailed picture of what life is like in IMBs, illicit massage businesses. I keep calling them IMBs. We found that the vast majority of women providing sexual services in them are victims of human trafficking. The women involved are virtually all from Korea or China, speak limited English, are between the ages of 35 and 55 on average, and most of them are mothers with children to support back home. They are recruited through advertisements that make false promises about the kind of work they will do and the pay they will receive. When they arrive for the job, they're rapidly swept into a complex web of systems designed to keep them from being able to actually leave the business. The women are controlled through fraudulent information about how it works in America. They're coerced through the debt that they incurred either before they came to the United States or in the process of coming to the United States. They're very rarely aware of their rights here in the country and are thus unaware of the protections and help that are available to them. The traffickers often make a point to tell the women that the police will not help them, and even lie, saying that the police are working together with the trafficking operations. When I get later to talking about enforcement, when the emphasis on the enforcement for human trafficking is on the workers and what they're doing, it only inspires and empowers this lie by the traffickers by showing that they're not even looking at me, but they're sure as heck paying a lot of attention to you. Victims of massage parlor trafficking are also controlled by extreme cultural manipulation and coercion. Traffickers threaten to tell their families and friends back home what exactly they're doing here, which would not only bring shame to them, but also to their entire families in a very hierarchical culture. Housing is provided by traffickers, often as a method of control. The travel is also typically part of the traffickers' offerings, which is also a form of control. And due to the pervasive cultural shame we discussed, victims of massage parlor trafficking rarely self-identify as victims. Additionally, their lack of knowledge of the protections here in the United States contribute to that lack of self-identification. This makes identifying this form of trafficking through typical investigative methods incredibly difficult and requires a new approach. So the complexity of the problem requires sort of complex and innovative solutions. So when we look at enforcement, it can't just be an emphasis on law enforcement. There has to be code and Department of Health enforcement as well. So through our work in the field with over 150 criminal and civil enforcement agents, legislators, and service providers across 32 states, 20% of which are partners here in the great state of California, we've identified best practices for eradicating illicit massage business trafficking, which comes down to the point of today's hearing. Rather than shutting down IMBs one by one, law enforcement can investigate illicit massage businesses as organized crime networks, building circumstantial cases and going after the money, the tax evasion, the wage and hour violations. These are long-term investigations that require significant cross-agency collaboration, and it's really important to do this type of follow-the-money investigation to end the trafficking. But it's not the only way. As the chief of police of Vacaville noted, code enforcement and Department of Health should and do focus on the businesses that we're talking about here today, whereas law enforcement's focused on the more criminal elements. If what we're focusing on is the human trafficking and not the women being trafficked, then focusing on their role as massage therapists or fraudulent massage therapists is not going to end trafficking. It's just going to police an already vulnerable population. The focus for these ordinances, however, should be on specific business operations. Communities where business regulations are strong and well enforced create an intolerable environment for traffickers to operate while also protecting the legitimate massage profession. So, especially relevant to today's hearing, strong civil laws regulating massage businesses that do not emphasize therapist behavior and do emphasize the business operations and those who have power and control to make those business decisions are the strongest for ending trafficking. These standards can include things like regulating the hours of operation so that they can't be offering massage at 2 a.m., as well as rules around entrances and exits. Many of the IMBs we've seen across the country have a front door that's basically never been unlocked, and the windows are blackout tint and the buildings look abandoned. Men enter through back alleys and side entrances that are hardly ever locked. Every entrance has significant CCTV surveillance to see who is at the door and who's coming in, and typically buzzer entry is part of allowing the buyers in. These are not typical for an ordinary legitimate massage profession. And they also have obscured reasons for customer privacy as well. So the current legislative landscape across the state of California, but also the United States, I don't want to single California out, it's not unique in this significant gap, but there are gaps at every level of jurisdiction, from many in this state who have no regulations at all to those with weak regulations containing loopholes for traffickers to exploit. Some jurisdictions focus regulatory attention solely on massage therapists and other employees. For example, an emphasis on licensing standards, a proper attire, etc. And while we're not saying that those are good or bad, we are saying that those don't have much of a bearing on actually ending trafficking. So in this trafficking specific approach that I'm bringing, the business itself, the structure, operations, management, ownership needs to be where the clauses focus. So enforcement of these employee-centered laws, when the laws are employee-centered and then we're only enforcing them, what we're doing is reinforcing trafficking by only having consequences for the potential victims with no consequences for the people that are actually exploiting them. What we have also seen in tracking the media over the past 2 years of massage business ordinances is that when a strong law passes in one jurisdiction or a current law begins to enjoy strong enforcement, traffickers move their operations to a nearby city or county that has weaker laws or weaker enforcement efforts, often to storefronts they already own or use that already exist within their organized criminal network that's enjoying the lack of regulation that it has experienced to date. So the solution is to create an inescapable situation where states, counties, and cities are all exerting equivalent pressure to make illicit massage business trafficking impossible. While here today we can't talk about every other state, what we can talk about is every other county and city in this great state that encompasses over 35% of the nation's IMBs and would surely have ripple effects for the entire country if we truly cracked down in a concerted way. Aside from having 35% of the IMBs, California also contains 2 of the 3 main cities in the country to which women are initially recruited and begin their trafficking experiences, Los Angeles and San Francisco. While California's statewide law mentions the massage industry, the current law does not directly regulate massage business operations within the state, nor does it inspire other counties and cities to take that approach in their regulation. Polaris conducted research of the massage ordinances across California to determine whether or not those regulations are in fact focused on loopholes in business regulation typically exploited by traffickers, or if they continue to emphasize consequences on potentially trafficked women while avoiding consequences for the trafficker. What we found is that of the 536 jurisdictions we looked at in California, only 27% have ordinances which contain at least 3 strong clauses that seek to end massage parlor trafficking by focusing on the business operations. While only 3 jurisdictions in the state have ordinances that we identified that specifically target the workers and overemphasize the workers, rarely do the remaining 533 make it clear that the owners and managers bear the responsibility for those code violations, and that any violations women are potentially either forced to engage in or do engage in are the responsibility of the owners and operators of those businesses. This creates an unclear situation where code enforcement can, and often does, as we've seen across the media we've analyzed, choose to penalize potential trafficking victims instead of potential traffickers. Due to the size of the state of California, its role as a port of 2 of the main ports of entry for the victims into this type of trafficking, and the overall extent of its IMB problem, the creation of a stronger regulatory framework at the state level would support business operation laws with strong anti-trafficking measures at local and city county levels, could have ripple effects across the country. So my team at Polaris has supported already 8 state level and 24 local city and county level massage ordinances being proposed, and many have passed. Many are in the process at the moment. And most of them are, all of the ones we've been responsible to, aimed at supporting the massage profession while closing those loopholes. So the massage profession, as you all have done today, should be convened and part of that conversation to make sure that these trafficking clauses are not unduly burdensome on the therapists themselves. For example, we've learned that the locked front doors should also have some exceptions for sole practitioners who may be the only person there, obviously, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't find a way to close the loophole while also uplifting and empowering the massage profession. So we're hopeful that a result of today could be strong civil regulations and enforcement of those regulations that are modeled by other jurisdictions currently in California. San Francisco is a pretty shining example that we use across the country of a really strong law that is used not only by the Department of Health, but also the red light nuisance abatement separately from that to really build on and eliminate trafficking. And what we've seen there, as well as in Santa Clara, that when they close the massage businesses with those ordinances, they don't reopen. So it's not to say that they don't reopen elsewhere in the Bay Area, but they're at least leaving those areas that have chosen to make their regulatory framework inhospitable to this type of business. And Los Angeles has that in the process now as well. So it's starting to happen, and I think the continued guidance at the state level could continue that wave. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You mentioned that San Francisco and Los Angeles are the two most prominent places, I guess, for that 35% of the 9,000 that we're seeing it. But then you also said that San Francisco has one of the best ordinances in terms of restricting. How that seems kind of contradictory.
Absolutely. So San Francisco is a main port of entry for the women to begin being trafficked, to begin certain levels of exploitation. Also, it's where they might be recruited in to join the network, but the businesses themselves that they might first be trafficked out of aren't necessarily in San Francisco proper.
I see. Okay, very good. Thank you. Questions? Yes, Senator Newman.
Ms. Keyhan, I actually happen to represent a part of Orange County, and so out of curiosity, to what do you attribute the very high level, the concentration of businesses? Is it, and it might be a combination, enforcement demand, or is it something about the nexus, proximity of the nexus for trafficking that would lead to that?
I would say everything that you mentioned, as well as the travel route so some are brought in across the border in San Diego as well. So just the Orange County's sort of centralized location for the travel routes to then be funneled to the rest of the states. But also I would argue that it's demand. High population cities and areas tend to have a higher concentration of illicit massage businesses. Rural areas obviously have them, but the more people you have there, the higher the demand tends to be.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Newman. You mentioned also that it going after or regulating the massage therapist isn't quite as, that kind of criminalizes the therapist or the trafficked individual versus going after the establishment that may have a greater role or more success in terms of closing it down. But if the local jurisdictions require certification of every massage therapist in their jurisdiction, then that would put, I would think at some point in time, those establishments out of business because they would have no one to be in the facility that could even front as a massage establishment.
What we've seen is there's a seemingly endless supply, and the women are disposable to the traffickers, so you can just keep taking them and they'll keep replacing them. We need to be going after the people that are exploiting them on a daily basis.
Got it. Very good. Thank you. No further questions. Thank you very much for the very troubling testimony. Thank you.
Well done.
Very well done. It doesn't happen often in this building. Or at all, actually. Now, if we could bring our next panel forward, I'd like to invite, we have, Ms. Siegel. Please come up. This is our next panel.